speaking of Exo, we'll come back to what we were trying to do earlier. Well, not what we said we were going to do. We're going to try and stump the consultant. Once again, there's a few things you don't do on live television, and that's work with animals and children, apparently. But the other thing you shouldn't necessarily put yourself up for is to use live software, have questions thrown at you that are very difficult deliberately. But there is a man that's prepared to step into the ring and do that. It's Murray again. So Murray Dudding, come on back, and we've got some questions for you, young man, to bring those questions to Murray. No one better than Stephen, user group friend, our great glue in these great presentations. Steve was delighted in trying to stump Murray, and it's with great pleasure we hand to you, Stephen, and see if you can do just that.
Thanks, Grant. Well, look, if we can't stump the Murray, at least we know we were able to stump the Grant with the introductions. So, it's good progress. Now, Murray, we do have some questions coming in from the audience, and I would just encourage everybody to keep those questions coming. There are a number of questions that were also asked in advance during the registration process. So we will ask a few of those questions as well if we run out of live questions. But I'm going to start, Murray, with some of these live questions. Because it's a fantastic way to keep you stumped. Did you want to share your screen, Murray, just so that you're ready to roll if you actually want to jump into the product? And if you happen to have some children and animals there too, that'd be fantastic. But look, let's start with this first question. Hi, Murray. We have 2 warehouse locations that we manage separately, but we're looking for a way to manage the inventory as one. Can you recommend a system or add-on for that? Now, look, I might talk to that one firstly, Murray, and then let you add some context. I'm just trying to understand, Jane, exactly what you mean by that one. You might want to send a follow-up question to that. If this is really about your purchasing process and how you optimize your purchasing with suppliers and the distribution of inventory across those two locations, you might be interested in looking a little bit further at NetStock, which is essentially a inventory demand planning tool that manages the aggregation of demand across all of your customer demand across multiple locations, supports the generation of purchase orders and also the generation of transfers, so that you can carefully manage stock being moved across locations. Murray, have you got anything else to add with that?
Yeah, well, I had some questions for Jane as well. I'd like to know if the stock's actually sitting inside Exo or if it's external to Exo. The way you worded the question, it wasn't clear, because obviously in Exo, the first step is to make sure that all of that stock is inside Exo in 2 separate locations. And if you're looking for visibility around that stock, then the stock inquiry screen within Exo will display the stock, the availability of that stock, what's on order, etc., for each one of those locations. But yeah, so yeah, I think there's a few unanswered questions there around that. But yeah, just to reconfirm what Stephen was saying, NetStock with the purchase order integration plugin would be a good option to explore if you're looking for better inventory management, particularly around forecasting and that type of thing, than what you can achieve through Exo. That's an amazing product and integrates fully with the Exo product as well.
Fantastic.
So yeah, and just as a little aside, how many times did you use the word discovery in one sentence there? All right, come on, Stephen. What have we got next?
Let's keep them coming, Murray. Let's not get sidetracked. How do you do a batch payment for foreign currency in Exo Business?
Okay, so a batch payment for foreign currency in Exo Business. Obviously, the first thing that you need to do is make sure that you've got a foreign currency bank account set up. So that's a GL account that is associated with that currency. And then what you would then probably look at doing, and maybe if I just jump into where's my creditors stream. If you set up an account group that, say, something like this, where you've got a USD suppliers account group, where all of the creditors that operate under that currency can be allocated to, then when you go into the payment processor, it'll take a little bit of time to open up, but hopefully not too long. Everything else is open quite fast today. There's nothing worse than doing a live demo and you're standing there. It takes 5 minutes for the screen to work. And when you tested it, when you did your rehearsal, it opened just like that. But anyway, from here, inside the payment processor, we can select which account group we're going to pay from or pay to. So you'd select that account group, bring up all of the creditors that are under, in this case, USD. And obviously, we also need to make sure that we've got our USD bank account selected. And then you can process the payment from there. That would be the best way to do the batch payment process. So I hope that answers your question.
All right. Continuing on, a question here. When using the discounted pricing option for pricing policies, why can't you see the GP or discounted unit price when keying a sales order or creating a quote?
Yeah, good question. There is a margin value that appears if you go into the sales order line periscope, but when you're keying an order, you don't really want to be drilling down into periscope to see what your GP is, or we'll see what the discounted unit price is. So probably the best way of setting this up is to get some extra fields added to your sales order lines and the quote lines, and then those extra fields will display the GP and whatever other values that you're wanting to calculate and display. So we can do the calculations, it'll appear on the field. The only proviso is that the values won't populate until you hit save on the order. But it should, if you're creating a quote and then you convert that quote into a sales order, those values should flow through automatically, so you're not having to resave the sales order again. So that would be my suggestion.
That's great. Thanks, Murray. Another question here. Will there ever be a way to edit or delete or cancel, or will there only ever be reversal journals? And I think what we're talking about here is the ability to edit or delete a transaction. Do you want to provide some feedback around that one?
On behalf of all the auditors in the audience, I hope not. Look, we do get this question a lot. And in other products, it is much simpler to just change a transaction. Oh, oops, got the wrong price. Go in, edit it. Now the price is what I want it to be. Exo has been set up with accounting principles in mind, and what that enforces you to do, unfortunately, is rather than just go in and change the invoice or change the transaction, you need to reverse it out and then re-enter it again. So what in Exo they try and do is make sure that there is easy ways of doing that. So you reversing a debtor invoice, or reversing some other kind of transaction is generally in Exo relatively easy. GL batches, for example, if you've made a mistake in the GL batch, you can reverse the GL batch, copy it to edit it, and then repost it again through the GL batch utility. But what that provides you with is an audit record of what's been done. so that you can go back later and prove, for example, that there was a reason why you made that change. And coming back to the event tracking that I highlighted right at the top of the first segment, with using event tracking and making people actually do follow a strict process when changes are made, ensures that there's security in your system. And if you do get audited or you need to be audited, it provides the auditors with an audit trail for all of the transactions that flow through your system as well. I can talk a little bit more about that, but I'm not sure how much more time I've got. So I'll stop there.
Let's leave that one there, I think. Murray, just moving on to another one here. Using Cashbook, why can't you consolidate GL postings when paying from a US dollar bank account?
Consolidate GL postings when paying to a US dollar bank account. So I'm guessing what you're wanting to do is consolidate. So you've got a number of transactions that are going through to your USD bank account, and you want to consolidate those down into just one line so that when you go to do your reconciliation in that bank account, you've just got one number, which presumably will relate to that one number in the bank account. I'm supposing that that's the wish behind the question. There's because in Cashbook entry, it's literally your one side's going to the GL. There's no real way, or two sides are going to the GL, depending on what type of posting you're doing. There's no real way to consolidate those down. I would, I hear your pain. I haven't got an answer for you straight away. I'd love to say use bank feeds, but because it's a USD bank account, that may not work as well. I hate to say it, but you might have stumped me.
Fantastic job, Andy. Thank you for that. But maybe, Murray, you can go away and give some thought to that one, and we can come back to Andy offline with some further feedback around that. Now, I am very aware that we're running out of time, so might just try and rush through a couple of other ones very quickly if we can, Murray.
Yeah.
After making a purchase order fully processed, is there a way to change it back to unprocessed? Sometimes we close off old purchase orders thinking the order's been completed, only to have our suppliers supply more product at a later date.
Once it's been fully processed, you can't. There's no way to unprocess it. You can't reverse it back, because once it's set to fully processed, there's a bunch of fields that get updated in the background once it's set to fully processed, which essentially close off that PO. But what you can do is copy the purchase order and just drop out the lines that have already been supplied. I guess my question would be more along the lines of why is it being set to fully processed if there are still lines outstanding on the order? Because you can do multiple receipts off that PO, there's no real need to close off a purchase order until it's been completed, or until you know that the goods aren't going to show up. So my suggestion would be leave the order open and then receipt in the balance of the lines at a later date. Now, Stephen, I know we are running out of time, but there was a question that was raised by Delphine that I'd like to answer around Power BI. So I think Delphine was asking, we've got Power BI, we've also on Exo hosted, but they want to make sure that the data feed from Exo to Power BI is as live as possible. So I phoned a friend and went straight to the source, and the Exo hosted team have come back to me and they've said that they can install the Power BI data gateway within the Exo hosted environment, and you should be able to refresh your data whenever you need. There may be some tweaks that we need to make to the reports in order to enable that to happen. But yeah, absolutely, it's doable. So I encourage you to reach out to the Exo hosted team tell them what you want to have happen, and they'll make it happen for you.
Fantastic. Thanks, Murray. And now back to you, Grant.